I don't mind the hard questions either.
No, I don't.
So
I don't know you.
I thrive under the pressure. So
Are we good?
I have to.
All right. Hey, what's up out there? Back in the Mastermind Lab. We are here with Kevin Sullivan, businessman, entrepreneur, attorney. We're going to go over some things with him, talk a little bit about his business and his journey. Before we get into that, we want to thank our sponsors, the Tampa Club, Tampa Bay's premier dining and business club, sitting literally on the top of Tampa Bay. We also want to thank Merchantside Marketing. They build websites. They're doing a great job with ours right now. They do marketing, SEO, all of that kind of stuff. So we want to say thank you to them. And again, we're here with Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So,
Thank you for coming.
yeah, absolutely. Just basically, in the simplest of terms, I'm a suit and a smile. So I'm out here as a personal injury attorney. I work with the Nicoletti Law Firm. I'm a senior associate with them and work for the partner Nicoletti. We have 3 offices. So one is in Port Richey, Florida, so the West Pasco area. Then we have the East Pasco office in Zephyr Hills, which I'm at most of the time, and then our Tampa location as well. I was born and raised in the Tampa, Florida area in Apollo Beach, and have been basically an entrepreneur in selling and had some kind of business acumen throughout my life, starting with a young age.
So you have a background in business as well, right?
Yeah, so I was actually a business undergrad in college, so that, business management. And then that really helped me as far as going into the legal profession. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, isn't it about arguing and being an attorney and
That's what I
researching?
thought.
Yeah, exactly, and knowing statutes and laws and articulation and things like that. But I tell people all the time, it's so much more about business than the law. I mean, they go hand in hand, because here's the thing. You could go and be the best lawyer that the world has ever seen, and you could know black letter law, and you could be able to recite statutes. But if you don't have the clients to be able to assist and be able to help, then what's the point? So you have to be able to, be able to do budgets, as far as know where your marketing dollars are going to, where your rent's going to, where your employee costs are going to, research software, all those things. So you have that accounting kind of area. Then marketing, of course, is a huge thing. Are you putting up, billboards, radio, websites, commercials, things like that? And then, you got some HR in there, working with employees. Then you have client management, so trying to figure out how the best way you can assist your clients in the most timely manner. So there's so many things that go into a practice outside of just being able to say, hey, listen, like I do personal injury law, which, is based on negligence. So, it's a lot simpler than duty, breach, causation, and damages. So a lot more into it than that. If you want to be successful, that is.
Well, yeah, that's a lot. And so is it something that's included in law school? Do you learn that in law school, or do you learn that in undergrad? Is it required?
So it's not required in law school at all. The law school is basically just trying to teach you how to first research the law. So that's kind of the basics, giving you a basic overview, and then how to be able to find those answers and then articulate those answers correctly. So, there'll be memos and classes and things like that. You have your basic classes that cover everything. So, your contracts, your criminal law, civil procedure, which is basically how the courts operate, and a variety of kind of basic level legal classes. But as far as management, or client management practice and business practice, that's kind of either A, you just experience it, or B, you get some foundation in college. But at the end of the day, really the foundational thing is to being able to, 1, manage your time, and 2, being able to talk to people. And if you can do those things, you'll probably be okay in any kind of aspect of life, I guess.
Well, I'm talking to people a bunch now. My new career, I don't know about the time management part.
So it's a hard
so
one.
great with it.
Yeah, I would say, you get better with time and things like that, for lack of better terms. But, at the end of the day, for us, we don't have a 9 to 5. We're available, first of all, 24/7. And then we just go until we get the job done. That's kind of how we operate. And, very fortunate in that. I don't think I would be able to survive in a 9 to 5. It's just not for me.
No,
I don't like the 40-hour work weeks.
Patrick and I, we are just born that way. We're wired different.
Yeah.
And not only us, but a lot of people are. I was a terrible employee, but I'm a great entrepreneur. It's how I look at it. Maybe not great, maybe good. I've been doing it for a while myself, but I couldn't go back to a 9 to 5 either. There's just no way.
I mean, I work for, the partner, and she's great. And the reason why, or a big reason why our relationship is so good is because she has trust in me that I'm able to go out and get the job done and kind of can feed that entrepreneurial spirit. It's not as much of the, be here, do this, do that. Of course, I have requirements and things that I need to complete, but she knows I'll get those things done. So I'm in a very, very fortunate position.
Okay. What made you decide to become an attorney?
I'll start with the canned answer that everybody gives. I want to help people, and everybody gives that.
Bus drivers help people.
Yeah, the really honest answer is that when I was a young man, my father was in real estate, worked for a very large Fortune 500 company. And he brought colleagues and things like that to the house. We lived on the water, took them fishing and things like that. A lot of them were attorneys, so I got the chance to meet them at a young age. And I always appreciated just how they carried themselves, just how they acted, how they articulated themselves. They just had, and I'm sure everybody, kind of senses that presence around an attorney. Like they know something that maybe not everybody else does. And I like problem solving as well. And I am rather willing to get my hands dirty to get to the root of something. So,
what about some of the people who think that attorneys are jerks?
Some attorneys are jerks. I'm sure people may think I'm a jerk sometimes, but at the end of the day, you're going to find jerks in any field, I guess. I try to kind of go against that mantra and just try to treat people with respect, whether it be clients, whether it be insurance companies, whether it be other attorneys, because at the end of the day, it's a job. And you can't take that out on other people, and maybe that's why it is. You got to understand too that a lot of people think that lawsuits kind of arise out of just anything. Like attorneys will just try to pull something out of
like a
thin
frivolous
air.
lawsuit.
Yeah, a frivolous lawsuit. Things are a lot different, and to kind of transition with that is the personal injury realm. People are in car accidents, and I'm getting sued by this person that I hit. Well, first of all, you caused the injury. You have to take responsibility, and I think a lot of people have a real issue with doing that and taking responsibility for their actions. The second thing is that, we're not, for the most part, going after people. We're going after insurance companies.
Right.
And then the third thing is with the medical science that there is today, like, when you get in a car accident, oh, my back hurts or my neck hurts, I'm never going to be able to move the same. There's so much technology now with MRIs and things like that and expert testimony and, more qualified, not more qualified, but I guess more advanced doctors now, better education and things like that. We know more. That it's really going to be able to prove from the get-go, if there really is an injury or not. So obviously, if somebody is crying bloody murder, but they get an MRI and it comes up clean, it's kind of like,
for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, as a massage therapist, I specialized in auto injuries for many years.
Okay, so yeah.
One of the few that can read MRIs and X-rays and things like that. But there are places and in your body where an MRI would glance over pain, right? So how do you measure pain? I get it. I've been injured
It's an eggshell,
before.
so it goes down to eggshell plaintiff, and kind of everybody. At the end of the day, too, you got to look at it as everybody tolerates pain differently.
Sure.
If you hit, if you got ran into by a linebacker, or rather on the other side of it, if you ran into a linebacker, they're probably not going to feel very much. But if you ran into a 10-year-old child, they're probably going to feel a lot more, or even a 22-year-old young man that weighs 120 pounds.
Sure.
So people do feel pain differently, and sometimes that linebacker, you hit them just right the right area, they may feel pain. So,
Yeah.
of course MRIs, I don't want to seem like that's absolutely the tell-all.
No, but it has the best chance of seeing any damage.
It shows a
even
lot.
to soft tissue.
It shows a lot. Yeah.
I was rear-ended a few years ago. I was sitting in my car at the light, and this guy just ran right into me in an F-350 Super Duty.
Oh, goodness.
And I was jacked up, I didn't want to sue him.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing he said when he got out of his truck, he's like, hey, my friend can fix that.
Okay.
And so eventually I had to sue his insurance company. My attorney sued his insurance company. We didn't get much, not for the pain that I tolerated for years, not for the herniated discs that I still live with. What's the price tag on that, right? So I agree. I'm not against personal injury attorneys. I think they're necessary because if not, then insurance companies will hire attorneys to destroy you.
They will. Yeah, they do have an army of attorneys. And the biggest thing, and not to sound like an accident monger or something like that, but the biggest thing, it was very smart for you to go and get treatment. And if you decide to go after the other insurance company, that's between you and your family and things like that. But the biggest thing that I will tell people is that statistically, and I'm sure your fans out there will probably, fact check me as,
Hopefully.
people like to do. Statistically, you're probably going to get in an accident about every 8 to 10 years. So I say that because the first thing the insurance company likes to bring up, two things really. One is prior accidents, and the other thing is disc degeneration. Disc degeneration, that's kind of just, we all get older and things like that. So just kind of put to the wayside. Prior accidents, now that's a different story. Now you were smart, I imagine, got MRIs from your accident and were able to go and get treatment to kind of show that there was an improvement. And and why I suggest that is because say you got in an accident 2 years later, right? But you didn't get MRIs, you didn't get any treatment or anything like that. You just said, I'm fine, whatever. What is the insurance company going to do? You could be really hurt in that second accident, but then they say, hey, that's all from the first accident.
Sure.
But if now you have that record set where you can go, hey, listen, this is what appeared from the first accident. Now this is what appeared from the second accident. I deserve compensation. And also to the first accident, what was originally okay or I was working through has now been severely exacerbated.
Exactly.
So,
that's kind of my area.
But people are like, no, I don't want to do anything. And it's like, no, we're not saying you go after the other insurance or, anything like that. We're just saying, one, make sure you're okay, and two, protect yourself.
Sure.
Because it's likely to happen in the future.
I agree with you. And like I said, I've treated, that was during the PIP time.
Yeah.
I treated many people with auto injuries, and myself, I got an MRI the next day because I knew I wasn't feeling well. Mm-hmm. Actually, my head hit the headrest behind me and broke
that
it.
Whiplash. Yeah, that forward motion, people, it's that kind of sling back.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, I didn't make a great plaintiff because I was still trying to exercise. Mm-hmm. They followed me around. I'm changing a tire. In the deposition, they submitted all the information to us first and then asked those questions. I'm like, yeah, I can change a tire, but that.
Yeah.
And so that was a mistake. Either way, I was injured permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the compensation, I would just rather have my life back.
Absolutely.
Versus, a couple $1,000s that you end up with because the more treatment you get, the more it's going to cost.
And that's one of the hardest things being in this position. When it was interesting. So when I first started practicing, my mother was involved in a pretty serious accident. So I represented her and was able to help her. And so now I say I treat every client like I treated my mother, and I was able to kind of see the other side because I was the attorney and the son. So I would get those calls, oh my gosh, going through all this, and I can really, sympathize with every client and what they're going through. And the hardest thing to explain to people sometimes is that, sometimes the accident is just so severe that you may not be 100%. We're going to try to get you as close to it as we can, and some people have success where they're 100%, if not better, which is amazing.
Sure.
But really, and the thing with that is that you just have to educate people on how to drive properly, and we say it all the time: put down your phones when you are driving. Like, please.
Do people really do it though?
What? Put down their phones?
No, most people don't.
I'm telling you, I would say honestly, if people were honest and told us, the truth of what they were really doing behind the wheel when those rear end accidents happen, and this, don't fact check me because this is just a guess, but I would say probably 60% of our cases probably have to involve some type of distracted driving, whether it's texting and driving, messing with the radio, arguing with their kids, arguing with their spouse, their friend, whoever. I would say 60 to 70% of our actions probably have to do with some type of distracted driving.
And so I'd agree, but I'd say it's a little higher, and I don't care if anyone fact checks me.
I'm being conservative.
Yeah, I'd say 80%.
I bet, yeah.
Is somewhere distracted driving, even if it's looking at a cool billboard of a personal injury attorney.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what you do is interesting. A lot of attorneys, especially personal injury attorneys, get a bad rap. We all know that, right? They've been called ambulance chasers and all those things. But
So we can't, I would like to say real quick, so we can't, just to put it out there, we can't chase ambulances. There is solicitation rules and things like
Sure.
that.
You can't
It's not-
stop at an
yeah,
accident.
nope, it's not like the old days and things. And not that I was a part of the old days, but where you could get away with that. So there's severe rules from the Florida bar. So
How old are you?
27,
27. How long
Yeah.
have you been an attorney?
a little over 2 years.
Okay. So
Yeah, so-
relatively young.
Yeah. So, but I've helped a lot of great people, and we actually have, I call it our I think it was our wall of fame. I called it, or something like that. So anything over $100,000, six-figure settlements, we put on our website, and a couple of those have been mine over the last couple of years. So
Well, that's a
I'm very proud
marketing
of-
tool, right?
It is a marketing tool, but at the end of the day, to be able to be 27 years old and be able to have the success that I've had, which is, absolutely thanks to the people that I work with, I'm very lucky. So a lot of people can't say that they've handled six-figure cases that they've brought in themselves.
Sure.
And
What about the people who have low limits, right? Like 25,000, the bare minimum, and the person that the plaintiff, your client, is injured more than that amount would allow? What do you do then?
we run into that a lot. A couple things that we try to do with that. First thing is we got to figure out how much the hospital bill is. That's the big thing, and we try to educate the clients as soon as we know what the policy limits are to how to kind of treat their care. And so maybe their neck is a 7, but their back is a 3. So maybe they'll spend more time treating on their neck. We never try to guide care. We never try to tell people
That's
how to
important
treat
not
and things
to,
like
right?
that. Yeah, we don't give medical advice. Whatever you want to do at the end of the day, there's health insurances, there's things like that you can also use besides your auto insurance. Your auto insurance is first. So we just kind of try to let people know this is what the limits are, and you can kind of move forward and get better and discuss that with your doctor. But this is kind of what we're working with. This is all we can get, and that's how that goes. People say, well, can we sue for more? You can sue for as much as you want. The first thing you have to worry about is that's not guaranteed money. Well, the money that you get from the insurance company is guaranteed. They send you a check. That's it. So if they say, hey, here's $10,000, that's all we have, you sign a release, you get that $10,000. If you go after somebody individually, you may get, 100, 200 million, etc. But if that person doesn't have those assets, you get a judgment against them. Good luck collecting on a judgment, renewing it year after year.
I have a judgment sitting in my top drawer.
Yep.
Doing nothing.
You understand. Yeah, so
sure.
you get it. I mean, that's how it goes. And sometimes that's all you can do, and sometimes that person may hit the lottery, and, you do collect. I mean, things happen, but the insurance company is guaranteed money. But back to your question, the first thing we try to do is let them know what the policy is as soon as possible so they can go forward and, kind of dictate their care with their doctor. The other thing we do is we always, during our closings with our clients, when we give them their checks and explain how everything was broken down, we always tell everybody to get uninsured motorist coverage.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, if you are driving in the state of Florida without uninsured motorist coverage, you are gambling with your health. You may as well just be, at the Hard Rock putting it on red or black, because at some point you're probably going to get hit by somebody that isn't going to have insurance. And I say that for two reasons. Number one is they say roughly about, I want to say 40% of people don't have insurance in the state of Florida.
That's almost half.
I want to say roughly, that's the last thing I've seen. So, that may be a little high, but here's the other thing, okay? Everybody, or a lot of clients will go and say, I have full coverage. When I ask, you have uninsured motorist. I have full coverage. And I'm sure you've heard that a million times. Yeah, I have full coverage. We go and look at their policy. Full coverage in the state of Florida is personal injury protection, so the $10,000 paid up to 80%, and then 60% of lost wages. And then they have a liability coverage. So if they hit somebody else, hit a house, whatever, there's $10,000 for that. That's it. So first of all, there's no collision coverage required. So if you get in an accident, you're at fault, you're out of pocket to pay for your car if you don't have collision. The other thing is there's no bodily injury, so that's referred to as BI, and there's no uninsured motorist required in the state of Florida. So you could be hit by somebody that hands you you take a picture and things like that, their Geico insurance card, and you can actually look on there some of the insurance cards if it's checked off or not. So if there is BI or if there's not. But yeah, people are driving around, even if they have full coverage, really without coverage. So they get the $10,000 in PIP, which you go treat for a while, that's eaten up pretty quickly, especially if you're
Very
out of work.
quickly.
Yeah,
All you
so-
need is one MRI, and that's a third of it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
MRIs and then hospital bills and things like that. So to deal with low policy limits or not worry about anybody else, get uninsured motorist coverage. I don't care if you get 10,000, if you get 25,000, 100,000, whatever you feel you can afford and whatever is comfortable with you, get something.
You hear that, folks? Go check your policy and
Call
make
your
sure you
agent.
have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, uninsured motorist.
telling
I
you.
definitely have it because
You
I used to
know.
live in Dade County.
Oh, well, that's where the probably the 25% of the 40% without insurance live.
Definitely. So I mean, you're a busy guy. You have these pretty large settlements and course cases that you've won. Do you go to trial a lot, or is it mostly settlements?
It's a mixed bag. It depends. There's so much that goes into trial. I would say a lot of it is settlements because it's like you said, when we go back to the question of what do you do if somebody is more hurt than the policy is. So if somebody goes and has a $10,000 policy, has, permanent injury, things like that, and the insurance company gives us $10,000, a settlement, that's it. There's nothing more to go after. So we wouldn't sue for anything. Usually trial comes up in the kind of 250 and even the hundreds kind of, but the hundreds to, plus is when trial usually comes in. From our experience, that's when the insurance company really starts taking the gamble and thinking about, hey, do I want to pay this or do I want to go and, take a chance at trial, go through discovery, things like that, find some additional information. It does absolutely happen with lower policies, but as you know, with those medical bills stacking up, lost wages, etc., the insurance companies don't want to expose themselves to something called bad faith, which is basically when they don't fulfill their, for lack of, full explanation, when the insurance company doesn't fulfill their contractual obligation to pay that claim in an efficient and reasonable manner, I guess you could say. So
Okay.
equitable manner. Obviously, if you have $30,000 in bills and the insurance company's like, we're not going to pay the $10,000, there's an issue there. There's definitely a bad faith claim. Now, that could be for, every case is different. I do want to say that. And some people, don't want to go to trial. Some people are just not good at going to trial. Some people, a lot of things come up, prior accidents, criminal records, things like that. So
Criminal records.
sometimes it comes up. They dig through everything. They dig through your financial history. They try to do whatever they can to, pay you the least amount of money.
Yeah. From what I understand, some adjusters get bonuses for that.
I don't know anything about that.
That's just from what I understand. I'm not going
You're
to
getting
assume.
fact checked on that one, not me. So
I'm not going to assume, but I've heard that in the past.
I'm not sure on that. Here's what we try to do is, we try to, every case we prepare for trial, I will say that, how we go through everything, and it's very systematic how we do it. Every case is different, of course, but I treat I'm sure most people, call me out on this, but I don't care if it's a $10,000 case, a $100,000 policy, a $1 million policy. I work at the exact same because I think everybody deserves their fair chance to maximize their claim and more importantly, to get better.
And they've put their faith in you.
That's a huge thing. And being 27, that was an interesting thing to handle. And I take that very seriously. And I think it makes the job more rewarding at the end of the day. I actually posted on Facebook a couple weeks ago that one of the coolest things that somebody ever said to me is that, I couldn't have done this without you. And I'm like,
That's a great feeling.
It was amazing. And, they talk about that stuff in law school a little bit, but they really don't. So that part of it was really cool, the job.
That's cool. So you seem to be a young, successful attorney.
Okay.
I want
try
to
to
hear
be.
I want to hear more about the times that you weren't. Let's talk about some of the failures. Some of the
Oh, man.
the times you said, you know what, I just can't do this, Mom. Like really, whether it's law school or before that, or let's dig into that a little bit.
Okay, so I think my whole life has kind of been, you second guess yourself multiple times throughout life, and I think it's when those transition periods. And I say the transition periods from elementary school to middle school to high school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. High school, I finished high school in 3 years. I didn't really question things.
We got one of these smart guys.
Yeah,
over
oh
here,
goodness.
Patrick.
I didn't really question it too much back then. College, that's when my mind started wandering because I was studying business. So it wasn't really a failure as much as, do I want to do this or not? Do I want to go into business? Do I want to go into entrepreneurship? Do I want to go into finance? Things like that. I think the first time I really questioned, like, man, is this the right decision, is sending out applications. Because you're waiting a couple weeks.
What type of applications?
Law school applications.
Oh, okay.
You're waiting a couple weeks or a couple months even, for these schools to respond back. And then but luckily I got in, of course. And then going to law school, studying for finals. That was an interesting experience because, especially the first year, because you don't know what you're doing. They give you samples and things like that, but you're just walking into this test, and a lot of teachers try to do they call them a kitchen sink final. Basically, they'll throw a bunch of different issues and fact patterns at you, and will try to basically get you to write for 3.5 hours. So that was a real mind boggler.
Why do you think that is?
I think they're trying to get you well rounded for the bar, because the bar throws a lot of crazy things at you. There's no specialty in law school, which I don't understand. It's not like undergrad where you pick business or you pick finance. You're just a well-rounded attorney, which I think a lot of attorneys, some will practice multiple practice areas. It's not for me. I don't think I could competently practice like 6 or 7 different practice areas, but they just want you to be well-rounded in any situation that you go into.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think the first time I really, really questioned, is this going to work, is when I took the bar. And nothing from fine. Being young all the way until you took the bar. I was fine. So I had an awesome childhood. I was very, very lucky. I had 2 supportive parents. Father was corporate America. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, raised me and my sister. Only rule at school, or only kind of rule in the house, was basically straight A's or as close to as possible, and we'll take care of everything else. So whether it was extracurricular activities or things like that.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, it was awesome. So, and then, eventually that paid off in life, getting scholarships and things like that. So it's kind of win-win for them. And, I was very entrepreneurial at a young age as well, and always trying to sling something or, sell something on eBay I found on, Craigslist or, Goodwill or something like that. So.
How old were you when you were doing that?
Oh, gosh, 11, 12 years old.
Okay.
My father was a watch collector, so he would buy out like watch shops and stuff like that.
He would buy the shops?
Yeah, like buy out like old watch shops and things like that,
Okay.
Antique watches and things from the late 1800s to the early, maybe mid-century 1900s. So I would go and help him sell things, and he would give me pay me a piece of it and things like that. And then as I kind of transitioned, I started playing paintball at a young age. And I started finding paintball guns on Craigslist. People were just trying to get rid of stuff out of the garage. So I would take them and resell them on eBay. Friends found out that I was good at reselling, paintball stuff. So they would give me their paintball stuff to sell, and then I would charge them a percentage. The coolest thing I got involved in was I bought these. They came to my middle school. They're called Miyachis. They were these little hand sack things, like hacky sack for your hand, they called them. So I got in trouble at school because I was selling them for $5 a piece. I bought them for like 2. Convinced my dad. I said, "Hey, buy me like 100 of these things, and I'll pay you back as soon as I, make the money back." So I was selling them at $5 a piece. I'd walk into homeroom with like 60 or $70. Like I was
nice.
Big deal. Like 12, 13 years old. And they're like, "Hey, listen, you can't do that anymore." So
the school said that?
Yeah, they're like, "Listen, you can't be like kids are spending their lunch money to buy these stupid sack things." So
yeah, well, they're spending their money on lunch.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's the difference?
So
you became a competitor.
Yeah, so I just put them in the closet after I got in trouble at school. So like 5 years later, we're on eBay, and my dad goes, "Hey, you still got those, stupid hacky sack things?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, do you have this one?" And I said, "Yeah, I got 3 of them." He goes, "They just sold for $90 a piece."
Nice.
Yeah, so that was, I want to say I made like $2 or $3 at like 14 years old, just selling these like stupid things. So
that alone is, and it's so much easier to do that even now than when you were 14.
Oh yeah, you can find. I have friends that do it as like side hustles and things like that. They'll go to Goodwill and find like thrifted clothes and old T-shirts and things like that. So very easy. But so when things got hard, or when I really questioned things, was taking the bar. So the first day I thought I failed the bar. I'm like, there's no way. So I'm like, the second day, I just go in and I'm like, I'm going to do the best I can, whatever happens. Maybe because you only have to pass each day. So you can retake one day if you'd want instead of both days. I'm like, listen, I'm just going to do the best I can. So I called my mom and I'm like, hey, I'm 85% sure that I passed. I don't know how I came up with that number, but if I didn't pass, it wasn't by much. So they make you wait for like 2.5 months or 2 months to get your scores. So you're sitting there and you're like, what if I didn't pass? I just spent the last 24 years of my life preparing for this. I have a job offer. All my friends and family, I was the first one actually to go to college since my grandfather. All my friends are, waiting to hear and things like that. So you're just kind of sitting there. So that was the first time I really kind of questioned, like, oh man, is this going to work out? And then I think that the first 6 months of practice were kind of, you go back and forth because, it was just so new. And I had an incredible boss. So, the learning curve wasn't that hard, but, you're dealing with people at the hardest point in their lives. So you're taking phone calls at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes you're getting yelled at. Sometimes you're getting called every day by a client. And people can say, well, you need to practice client management. You need to set up that relationship up front. You said it before. There's a billboard on every corner. They can't get a hold of you, they're going to call somebody else.
Absolutely.
I wasn't going to let that happen. So I had to deal with that. And that was very interesting. And you get better with it over time, and you learn how to respond to things and be proactive in things, so not as many questions are asked. And I love all my clients, by the way. You can call me as much as you want. I'm not saying that. But it's hard in the beginning. It's hard to figure that out. But, it's been amazing.
Did you ever question why you did it at all? Was it that hard, or you were just like,
No.
well, it's kind of hard, but I'll get through this?
I'm just, because we were just, we don't have, I don't know about if I ever did it at all. We have a very hands-on firm. There's only 2 attorneys there, and we handle everything. And not that that's, we're overwhelmed or anything like that, but, we don't do the call service. We don't, I give every client my cell phone. So, we don't do the call service or go through the receptionist. I'm just like taking phone calls because I want to be their first call. I want to know when something's going wrong. I want to know when something's going right. I want to be there every step of the way because, all of a sudden they don't get in for their MRI, or they miss a doctor's appointment, or they don't show up for 2 weeks. That gap in treatment, that really affects the case. And clients don't get that. They're just like, well, I missed 2 weeks. Sorry, life got busy. I have to be able to work with them and explain that because, first thing the insurance company's going to say is, well, why didn't your client treat for 3 weeks?
Exactly. That's the first question I would ask.
And then I can go and say, well, they were dealing with their grandmother. They had a work conflict, et cetera, et cetera. It humanizes it. It makes it more understandable. If I'm just sitting at a deposition or I'm talking to an adjuster on the phone and they ask that, I can't go, well, let me get back to you on that. I look like I don't know the case.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was, the first 6 months were the hardest for sure. Did I question, did I do this at all? Nah, I don't think so. But it was a hard point in my life, So, and it was unstructured as well. College, high school, all that. Go to this class at this time. You do this at this time. You do this at that time. That structure, has been established our whole lives. When you're kind of an entrepreneur, working for, a firm, it's not as structured. It's you have to go find the networking events. You have to go find the opportunities. You have to go meet with the clients. They're not on your schedule. You're on their schedule. You may have to go meet somebody at 7 o'clock at night. You may have to talk to somebody at 7 o'clock in the morning before they go to work. So, you learn to deal, though. You learn to make it happen, and it's been amazing.
Great. So let me ask you this question. Was there a time that you really just got beat up? Not physically, of course, but in court. Kind of walked out, hat in hand.
I haven't had too many cases
really?
Go to trial. Yeah, no.
Huh.
So
that's kind of.
I'm sure it's coming one day.
Well,
Here's the thing: is that if you, it's going to happen. I mean, juries are, they're just average people. Sometimes they believe see things one thing. Sometimes they see things another, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I try to take pride in knowing my cases inside and out, so I don't get blindsided or I don't get, misinformed or caught off guard.
Do you ever refuse clients because you have too much of a workload?
No, I would never refuse clients. The only thing that I would probably do is just talk to the the partner about assisting with the case, or there's some way to get around it. You co-counsel it with another firm if we need to. I would never refuse a client. The only time that I would refuse a client is if my want for the case to succeed is more than theirs. At the end of the day, I work for them. I work for the client.
Right.
But they have to want to get better as well. I'm not going to kind of work for someone that, just doesn't want to treat for 6 months. You know what I mean? Or,
Sure.
Doesn't want to take it serious. I take these injuries very serious. I deal with some very hurt people. So I want to represent somebody that really wants to get better,
Has that been like a work ethic that you kind of got from your dad, or is that something that's just always been in you? Where'd you find that attitude? There aren't many attorneys who have that same attitude.
I mean, he was a grinder. He still is. He worked hard. He started out from the bottom and ended up. He was director of real estate for Discount Auto Parts. So he built about 600 stores for them. So they were.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's always been grinding. That was like, my dad still travels a lot, and he traveled a ton when I was a kid, and that was normal. A lot of people are like, oh, was that okay? Like, you didn't see your dad a lot? And I said, no, I knew he was working. He was out there, grinding and doing his job. And now he does real estate for Xerox, for the Americas. So he's still busy. Turns 60 next month.
Oh, that's still relatively young.
Yeah. So he's got a lot left in the tank. And, the work ethic, I was always told that, if you wanted something, you had all the abilities to go get it. And, you had the abilities to do something great. And I think I just love the grind. I'm just one of those people. It's just, I guess partially from my father and just partially ingrained from me. And that's the thing. It's like with, there is a lot of money in personal injury, and people say that. For me, it's not about the money. I could care less, to be honest with you. I want to get as much money for my client as possible as far as I'm concerned. It's about winning for me.
So what kind of car do you drive?
I drive a Mercedes. Yeah. So,
I had
fair
to
enough.
ask.
It's easier to cry in Mercedes than a Honda, I guess. So,
Yeah, well,
but
it's easier to be stressed out on the beach than
fair
walking
enough.
around.
Yeah, but it's about the win for me, and the big wins are cool, the big policies and the big verdicts and settlements and stuff like that. But the bigger wins are for me. I just had a client. It's a smaller policy. Massive hospital bill, like ridiculous hospital bill. I think they scanned everything from head to toe. And he had some injuries and things like that, but
What was the nature of the injury?
He had neck and back pain. But they scanned him, he said, I got a little bit of headache. So they scanned the head, then they scanned, I had prior, knee issues, scanned the knees. I'm like, oh my goodness, massive hospital bill. So he goes to me and says, hey, I'm probably not going to get anything out of this, am I? And I said, listen, let's not say that. Let's go ahead and see what I can do and negotiate the bill. And I worked with the hospital, and they were understanding, and ended up actually getting the guy some money in his pocket. And those for future care. And those are the real wins for me, is that I can take those smaller cases, get somebody some money back so they can get future care. They're not upside down.
Yeah, I mean, I used to deal a lot with attorneys. Actually, I used to meet them right here at the Tampa Club a bunch of times.
I love the food here.
The food's great. It's the first time I ever had duck soup.
Okay.
And so I would send these attorneys all of these clients, and they couldn't really reciprocate because I'm not a doctor, right? So I had to get an outside guy who's a doctor and bring him in and all of that. But when I kind of look back, I go, yeah, I accepted a lot of letter of protections, and some of them I wish I didn't. A letter of protection, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of a promissory note to pay, and it's not really distinct in what the amount is. It's just a promissory note to pay. And so I was stuck with 5 or 6 letters of protection, and then I was negotiated down to, about the smallest denominator possible. And it wasn't necessarily for the treatment that I cared about. I wanted those people to get better because my reputation was at stake. But I grew a dislike for specific attorneys. Not all, but just those. And I'm thinking, hey, you just negotiated me down to the nubs, and you're not negotiating your cost and your price and your fee. And so I felt violated by that. And I think that might be one of the reasons some attorneys get the bad rap, some personal injury attorneys.
Here's the thing, and I can't speak for other practices, but I can speak for ours. We're very serious about case management. Last thing I want anybody to do is be upside down. I'm younger. I don't want anybody to go to me 10 years from now or 20 years from now or see me on the street or something like that and say, hey, that guy, took advantage of me or, didn't do
Sure.
everything he could and things like that. So it comes down to good case management. Are you pulling the PIP logs? PIP logs, personal injury protection logs, that's what's being billed on that first 10,000 to the insurance company. It's right there for you. You're going to know like what literally what has been done on the case right there. So if there's only a $10,000 policy and PIP is exhausted, that 10,000, there's an issue there. You should be able to articulate that to the client so they can figure out, hey, do I need to get on a payment plan with the doctor? Do I need to do this? Maybe I'm done treating. Maybe I feel okay, etc. Some clients will treat for 6 months, but they'll be fine in 3. But now that extra 3-month bill is there because somebody didn't say, hey, are you feeling okay?
The practitioner.
Yeah,
say.
and the practitioners that we've worked with in the past have been wonderful. But you just have to be really smart in case management and educate your client. Let them know, where things lie, because at the end of the day, everybody does a job in this, and everybody deserves to, get paid correctly.
Sure.
So
let me ask you this: if there's another millennial, right? You go to some networking events, and they're thinking about becoming an attorney. Right? What's the best advice you can give to them?
network now.
Network now.
Meet as
Build
many people,
relationships.
meet as many people as you can. And I was actually just talking to a colleague I just met at a networking event, and they were it would be a second career for them, and they asked the same thing. And I said, think about how many people you've met in your life. You've probably met thousands of people, I bet, right?
Sure.
Do you have an email for every one of those people?
Probably not for all of them, no.
Do you have a Facebook contact for all of them?
Not all of them.
Instagram contact, LinkedIn contact? Probably not. Imagine going and opening your practice or working for somebody and saying, I already have a contact list of 5,000 people that I can let know that, hey, I'm an attorney. You know what I mean? Or, hey, I'm, with this firm, or I'm doing this. Can you imagine how easy your life would be? Instead
Sure.
of starting day one and being like, all right, well, better get out there and start my list. You could be years ahead of the game. And that's why social media and things like that are so important, and to be able to, keep up with people. But the other thing I would say, it's not about, a numbers game as much as build real relationships as well.
Yeah, so people can trust you. And
Absolutely. And that takes time. That's not an instant thing. But if you can build that contact with somebody where, hey, shooting somebody an email or, a Facebook message or a happy birthday or things like that, you can still maintain some point of contact. But definitely networking is a huge thing. A lot of my clients come from referrals. People that know me, have had cases with me, et cetera, that I've known throughout my life. So that's important, is to have a network. If you're an introvert, if you're not about meeting people, that's okay too. Some people don't like networking. They don't like meeting people. So that's all right as well. You're probably going to be sitting at a desk a lot and probably writing a lot more than you would want to, instead of speaking, doing depositions, and
or go into
going to
tech or
court.
something like that, right?
Yeah, tech or finance.
Yeah.
So, there's a place for everyone in the legal field, but I would say it's a lot more of an extroverted field than
Gotcha.
anything.
So what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh, there's so much advice. I'll give you two pieces: one for legal advice and one for personal advice.
Okay.
Legal advice is, everybody thinks it's about having a lot of clients, and it's not really. It's about maximizing every claim. That's what this is really about, to get the best result possible for your client. Because if you have 1,000 clients and you only get each client $1,000, but you have 100 clients and you get each of those clients $100,000, what's higher? 1,000 times 1,000 is what, $1 million?
Sure.
100 times 100,000 is like 10 million. You know what I mean? So make sure that you're maximizing every case to its fullest potential, and that's any area of law, whether it be family law. Making sure that if it's a divorce proceeding, that your client's getting the best result possible. If it's a real estate transaction, make sure your client is getting the best deal on the land or what they're purchasing. wills and trusts, making sure that their estate plan is executed correctly, so identifies every issue, who the heirs are, personal representative, etc., and then personal injury, of course, maximizing that claim so they get the most amount of money in their pocket to pay for future expenses and etc.
I see.
Best personal advice I would say is, I think always keep dancing. Always keep dancing. Always keep moving. Always keep
Literally dancing? Or?
I don't know about literal dancing, but
Okay.
I think just dancing through life. I mean, life has got so many ups and downs and twists and turns. And at the end of the day, there are going to be people that are going to dance through. Some will do it more gracefully than others. But at the end of the day, don't sit down, don't lay down, don't rest. Keep moving forward, keep dancing. Eventually you dance long enough, you improve your craft. Things get more graceful, things get smoother, and things get better. So
I think that's great advice. I only know how to go forward one way. Me personally, I've failed multiple times at multiple things. There were times that I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just trying it anyway. Even with the podcasting, when we first started, we just kind of clipped on mics, started a camera, and went. And we leveraged our relationships to get some people that are well known and interesting on our show and different things like that. And so we started there. We started with leveraging our relationships. When the show didn't go great, we just kept going and going and going. And the more often we do it, the better we get at it. And we document our mistakes, and we keep them in. We don't edit mistakes out. We just keep them in so we know we can see them, hear them, and other people can too. Mm-hmm. And so other vantage points, right? Someone can say, hey, listen, I see this, but you guys should try that. And that helps us to grow as people too.
You got to be willing to listen to people. And I think that's a huge thing. And, a lot of people talk about having mentors. I think that, I think there's good things and bad things to that. You want to be individualized to an extent. You don't want to be exactly like somebody else, but it's always good to know those pitfalls. But just being able to hear the masses, I know a big thing is, not everybody can be wrong. So if 10 people are telling you that, hey, you should probably do this a little bit different, then you could, may consider doing it a little bit different. And I think in this millennial generation, a lot of people are like, being different is like a cool thing. Like, who cares what anybody thinks? And, just go forward. And, I think you should still listen to some advice along the way. And I think that's awesome that, you guys do that.
I think with millennials, obviously not every millennial is the same, and some get a bad rap. I think the stakes are much lower at this time because they can say, hey, I'm just going to do things my way, and if it doesn't work out, I have tons of opportunities. There's a safety net there, not as, generations previously. If my dad said, I'm not going to work today, maybe he gets fired and maybe we don't eat,
That is true. I mean, there's a lot, I would say with the safety nets, a lot more parental support, a lot more.
Now or then?
Now.
Okay.
People, friends, I have friends that, still live at home, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's what you want to do and things, maybe you can't afford to go out, as long as you're saving your money, I think that's the right thing to do. But I think there's a lot of safety net with that. But, grinding, I think you have to go through those things of living in the small apartment and, living off the ramen and stuff. And I didn't have to, I talk about that. I shouldn't have to, I probably didn't live that too much. But yeah, there were struggles, trials and tribulations, different kinds and things. But you have to go through something.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Adversity presents itself in different ways. There's poverty is adversity. There's, you could have had overbearing parents that totally just beat you into the ground for grades, and that's adversity as well. Obviously living on ramen noodles or being poor is different, but you can't diminish the other types of adversity. You can't diminish the dad that says, if you don't get straight A's, I'll throw you out or disown you, or the gay guy whose dad throws him out. Those are all different types of adversities.
Absolutely.
And I think they make you stronger as well.
I think they do. And I think struggles are a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think they're mandatory.
I think you have to, yeah. And I think, a lot of people, and I try to tell friends, this and things is that, what you're making today, because, I'll tell you, a lot of people my age, they just want to make enough money to cover rent, food, and travel. If they can do that, man, I'm living the dream. That's the best. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, what are you going to do 10 years from now? Like, that's not going to be enough.
Right. And
You
what
know?
happens if you get injured? You'll hire me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then
so,
you'll get your part, but then you can't live off of that.
and that's a huge thing too. I mean, with personal injury, it's not a lottery ticket. I mean, some people do get life-changing amounts of money, and we love doing that for them. But, a lot of people, for the masses, don't. They'll get, a few $1,000s, sometimes more, sometimes less. That's enough to get by and get transition and get some additional care and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you're 40 years old and you get, $20,000, that's not going to last you till you're 85.
I think we spent that on lunch a couple
Years
years straight, right?
Yeah, I guess,
20,000.
yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm 43, and so 6 months ago I had life-threatening injury, and so I'm not disabled, but I could be considered disabled. I have a mechanical valve in my heart, and so I had open heart surgery, right? And I talk about this all the time on the show, especially now. And literally, my life could have been very different. I asked my fiance not long ago, I said, have you ever considered if I became disabled, what would you do? What would the plan be? She said, well, I never thought about that because you're just a fighter. You always get better. And I think to myself, well, in the beginning, I thought I was done for. I thought that was it, and I had to live with that. So I didn't have the plan that I wanted. I had the 6-month plan of not being able to work for 6 months. But I'm just not designed that way anyway. I think about, hey, I don't have a 401k, but I do my own investments.
Yeah.
And, I have excellent life insurance. And for me personally, I do think about those things, especially when I'm getting a little long in the tooth. And younger people now kind of don't think about that, 2 generations ago, it was save all your money until you can't work. And then it became save some of your money and live some. And now it's just kind of like live.
Yeah.
And this, whoever chooses that, that's fine.
It's not the life for me. I can tell you that.
That's a lot of anxiety.
I don't know how people, and I don't want to sound like I'm bashing anybody that does that. I mean, live your life and things, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm not working. And one of my influences, I'm a big fan of Ryan Serhant. He has the vlog. He's a real estate $1 million listing guy and does his own vlog. Okay. And he was talking about who he looks up to, and who was the actor, like the all right guy. I can't even think of his name right now. Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. They both kind of talk about it in a different version, but they said they talk about like who's your hero, who are you working for, and it's working for that guy 10 years, or who I am 10 years from now. So I'm not working for 27-year-old Kevin. I'm working for 37-year-old Kevin, and then 47-year-old Kevin, and 57, et cetera, et cetera. That's how we have to think about things. Am I saying, save every dollar, sit in on Friday nights and not do anything? Absolutely not. But if you're taking 4 or 5 vacations a year and you're just making bills, that may be a problem.
It may be. I think the problem is many people are not sure how long they're going to live, but I'm guaranteeing they're gambling that they live long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they want to live long, but they're not preparing for that.
And life is a business. I mean, how you control your life is a business. How you market yourself to people, how you budget your finances, how you deal with friends and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, whether it's, your personal life or your work life. So, just because your business life is doing amazing, transition some of those, thoughts and goals and good things going on to your personal life.
Yeah, a lot of people focus on one or the other. I kind of do both. Again, because of my recent circumstance, I do more living.
Of course.
I have a list of places I want to travel to. I believe travel, grows your culture.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I don't know. Do you travel? What do you do for fun?
I don't travel.
What does an attorney do? Personal injury attorney do?
I don't travel. The first 2 years, I really haven't traveled too much. I'll be honest with you. It's just all been focusing on practicing, learning, being there for clients and things like that. I'm going, but I have started more. A lot of local trips, small things, Orlando, Miami. Yeah. I'm getting married this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So I will be traveling to the best place in the world to have a bachelor party, Las Vegas, Nevada. So I will be traveling there. Yep. And then we're going on a cruise for the honeymoon. So that'll be a couple trips and things. I love to travel. It's hard to find time. But eventually, it'll
Is
get
that
easier and
an
easier.
issue though? It's hard to find time.
You know,
You can basically mostly work from anywhere.
I could, yeah, for a lot of it, but at the end of the day, if I want to if I want to travel somewhere, I want to be able to unplug,
Sure.
and I want to make sure that my mind is clear as well. So, traveling for me is almost a preparation in itself. I have my checklist that I go through as far as what's going on with my clients, and then having meetings with the staff, and as well as the my boss saying, hey, this is where my cases are at. Because I still want to be able to deliver that full service, that concierge service, even when I'm not there. I'll tell you, like I was in New York, I want to say like a year ago or something like that, just visiting friends and getting some great food. And I had clients call. I said, hey, listen, I'm going to be gone for 3 days, Saturday through Monday. I had 3 clients call me at 8:30 Monday morning, and I took the calls. Happy to do so. I mean, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But, I want to be able to be at the point with my practice area where I can kind of completely unplug for, 2 to 3 days. And I think that'll get easier and easier.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something to be said about,
I love my job too, though. So,
nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
I mean, I see some people at the pool or at the beach on their laptop, and I don't subscribe to that myself. But I think that, as an attorney and your client wanting to reach you, if you say, hey, I'm going on vacation, I'm not going to be around, that's received a little differently. You can take the call, hey, is everything okay? Is there an emergency? Just my take on it. I don't agree with people necessarily sitting at the pool on the laptop. What's the use? Your view's blocked by a screen.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, you got to think about the profession I'm in as well. I got somebody that's got a broken arm or a broken leg or severe herniations, wherever they may lie, head injury, etc. And I'm like, oh, cool, met you a week ago. Glad everything's going okay. I'm going to be on vacation for 3-4 days,
Yeah.
Enjoy, and I'll be back. So,
And
I
they'll
try
say-
to put them first, too, in a lot of aspects.
Typical attorney, driving a Mercedes, always on vacation.
Yeah, I guess I'm 1 for 2.
Well,
So,
I mean, nothing wrong with a Mercedes. If that's what you like, this quality vehicle,
yeah, it's,
It's,
car's fun, gets me from A to B. And
and you can afford to do that, why not? You don't have to prove anything.
You
to
I
anyone.
spend a lot of time in my car, traveling and, whether it be meeting clients or, traveling to offices and things like that. So it's kind of my home away from home. That's where I put, some of my money to really enjoy that. If I'm spending, I've driven 65,000 miles in the last 2 years.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to be comfortable when I'm doing that.
Sure.
So,
Mercedes is kind of like an office anyway.
yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not too bad.
So what kind of book would you recommend for people to read that want to have success? There's tons out there, right? Think and Grow Rich, The One Thing, anything Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite books that you would recommend? to
So
people?
I just I read 2 of Tony Robbins. The names are escaping me pretty recently though. It was I think the 7 Steps to Financial Freedom was one, and then he wrote a second book that kind of like kind of emphasized that and kind of broke it down a little bit smaller, because the 7 Steps to Financial Freedom I think was like 400 pages. It was pretty thick. 300. It was pretty crazy. I just finished Sell It Like Sir Hunt, which was the real estate guy I was telling you about. He wrote a really good book on talking about his principles are like follow up, follow back, follow through, something like that.
Those are good.
So I'm talking
principles.
about like networking. I just finished. Made it pretty far through Gary V's. It's hard for me to read books because I just read so much. I'm like, I'll make it through, a couple pages and I'll be like, passed out, going to sleep.
Sure.
So, Gary V's book, the latest one, he talks about a lot of the different social media platforms and stuff like that. That's pretty good. I read some John Maxwell. He is kind of like a leadership inspirational writer.
Yeah.
And I'll, not to get religious, but I read some Joel Osteen as well.
That's
So
fine.
I like his stuff. Some people do, some people don't. I enjoy it. So I think for me, any suggestions on books is
What would you suggest if
I think
you're
you
at a
gotta
networking event?
I think you got to find what point in your life you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. and then people you look up to as well. So like if you're trying to find out about leadership, you may read a biography about JFK or something
Just
like
don't
that.
read the leadership challenge. It's
Yeah.
like 600 pages,
Okay,
and there's
yeah.
no space on those pages.
Okay.
All
Nope.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends where you're at in your life. If you're trying to learn how to sell, then, read a book, by somebody that, primarily does selling. Maybe I know Josh Altman. I'm a big fan of the $1 Million Guys. So, he just wrote a book too. I haven't seen it yet. And then I forgot what it's called, but it's all about negotiation, or
Okay.
a lot of it is. And cutting deals and things like that. So, maybe if you're in the real estate game or the mortgage business game, or, so maybe about cutting a deal, negotiation, if you don't have a lot of experience with that. Selling, there's a million books out there. Leadership, marketing, there's a million books. Gary Vee would probably be a good one, talking about like social media marketing and stuff. So,
That's pretty good advice, because most people that I've asked that question to, they just niche down to one book that they
like
like.
Think and Grow Rich,
Yeah, well,
that's it.
Think and Grow Rich. I
Yeah.
read both.
Yeah.
I just recently read Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins.
Okay.
Amazing journey, amazing book. And it was at the right time for me, especially when I was recovering. And I read that book and I was blown away by what he's been able to accomplish. And he went from just regular guy, right? And he's still regular guy. He's just overcome so many different obstacles, and he's just come out on top, never giving up every time.
Yeah, I mean that and that was, like you said, a great time in your life for that book to be read, and I think that's what you have to really focus on. And I'll have to check that out. I haven't.
It was necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, it came at the right time. When I arrived home from the hospital, that book came the next day, and I ordered it way early. It just went
Okay.
to my old address. So coincidence, maybe. I don't know. Fate, maybe.
Good timing, yeah.
It was definitely perfect. And I read that book with wide open eyes, thinking, this guy never, ever gives up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be more like that. Yeah. Do you
I
have a
would
mentor?
imagine. I would probably say, I have a couple people that influence me, and Dad's been a huge influence on me. I bounce a lot of ideas off of him, just due to his experience. I have a couple friends. I actually grew up skateboarding, so a couple friends that are entrepreneurs in that space, that I look to them and see what they've done in life. Look up to my boss for what she's been able to accomplish. So it's kind of spread out, and then of course celebrity entrepreneurs, the Shark Tank guys, the Mark Cuban,
Yeah,
the
I
Kevin
watch all of
O'Leary's,
that all the time.
$1 million listing guys, the Warren Buffetts and Tony Robbins, and all of those guys. So I kind of find inspiration from everyone and just kind of piece it together like a puzzle. I don't think there's any one person that's like, this is my guy, or this is my girl. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I agree with that.
just kind of paint it for my journey.
Well, we used to say here that success is a formula, You have to find what works for you. You have to find your own element. And so piecing together different things, I'm never going to turn away free information that's valuable. And I use that and mold it my own way. And, without the ability to do that, then we're just kind of all alone out there.
Absolutely. And you said what earlier, talking about a quote or, kind of advice that somebody's given me. One of the, with success and things I saw or read rather with Tony Robbins, he was talking about, your perfect life, or, how much money you want to make rather at the end of life, with the financial aspect. And say you want, $5 million. And he's like, if you do this for X amount of years, invest, 50, yeah, I'm just making this up, $100 a month, compounding interest for 30 years.
Sure.
You'll end up with $3 million. Like, it's really not, that hard. And so, and then break it down from your expenses, because you only need, say 20 years or 25 years of expenses. So say, and that's growing. So at 25 times, say your expenses are $40,000 a year when you retire because you own your house, et cetera. That's only $1 million.
Right.
You're not really, you don't need 10 million. You really only need $1 million to live the life you want. And then with the mentorship as well, Rob Dyrdek, Fantasy Factory, all of that stuff,
sure.
ridiculousness. So he talks about, he did an interview with, his last name is, I think it's Tom Bilyeu is his name. He did a podcast with him, and it was talking about kind of, he has like a vision board with like his perfect life. So, I want to live in a 20,000 square foot house, and I want to drive this car, and I want to, et cetera, et cetera. And literally broke it down into like every aspect that he wanted, and has these like vision boards, and then he works backwards. Like, how do I get to that life?
Like reverse engineering kind
Exactly. And I really identified with that. So, I try to kind of figure that out for myself. Like, what I want to do here. And things change, obviously. I mean,
Sure.
life adapts and grows, but I thought there was, very relatable for me and would work for me. So I thought
Okay,
that was
that's cool. So we're gonna get ready to wrap this up, but tell people how they can find you.
Oh, goodness.
Whether it's your Twitter handle, your web address. I don't know if you want to give your telephone number out, but
So I don't care about that. Yeah. So you can reach me. Cell phone is 813-598-4868. Office number is 727-845-5972. You can find me on Facebook at attorney Kevin L. Sullivan II. You can find me on Instagram at attorney Kevin. You can find me on Twitter at call Kevin, and you can find me on LinkedIn at Kevin Sullivan. So you'll always see, and when in doubt, my basically. I had to come up with some type of slogan. So considering For the People was taken, had to come up with something. So mine is accident ? Call Kevin. So and you'll often see it as a hashtag Call Kevin. So
I saw that on your website.
Yep. So accident Call Kevin. It's a great way. If when in doubt, you can probably Google that and find me somewhere.
Cool. Appreciate you coming out, man.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's kind of across the pond there a little bit, and the traffic's a little crazy, but we appreciate you coming out.
No, it's all fun, and I appreciate what you guys are doing and having me.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Kevin Sullivan, ladies and gentlemen.